An all-out war of words has erupted between Kerala's Malankara Orthodox Church and the National Commission of Women over a proposal for a probable banning of the confession practice in the church. The Kerala Church has issued a resolution terming this possible proposal on confession as an attack on the religious freedom. Take a look at this report.
The shocking case of serial gang rape by 5 priests in an Orthodox Kerala church. The accused allegedly used her ritual confession to blackmail and rape her for years. The husband of the survivor had last month made shocking allegations against the Malankara Syrian Church.
Believers is really getting cheated by the Indian Orthodox Church or the Malankara Orthodox Church, and I am sure none of the believers will get justice from this church. Only priests have a solid position.
After the rape shame, the National Women's Commission had sent a proposal to the centre seeking abrogation of the ritual of confession in a church, calling it a potent tool to blackmail and exploit women believers. But Catholic bodies are up in arms against the move, calling it an attack on the freedom to practice religion and spirit of constitution, even urging the centre to junk what they called an immature and unilateral move.
The Orthodox Syrian churches in the country and across the world have passed a resolution today against the National Women's Commission recommendation to abolish the sacred confession. Today, in most of the churches, the resolution was read out, and most of the believers supported this particular resolution, which was read out inside the churches.
In this church, for the last 2000 years, this holy confession was going on without anything wrong. And here recently, one priest has done something wrong. And on that basis, can you ban this?
ഇന്നത്തെ ഇടപെടുന്നതെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അത് അനാവശ്യമായിട്ടുള്ള ഇടപെടലാണ് ഇപ്പം നടത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോഴ് ഒരു അനവസരത്തിലുള്ള ഇടപെടൽ നടന്നതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഇത്രയും അജിറ്റേഷൻ കൊണ്ട് വൺ മാൻ ഷോ ആണ് നടന്നിരിക്കുന്നത്. ദാറ്റ് ലേഡി ഇറ്റ്സെൽഫ് സെയിങ് ദിസ് അല്ല, ഒരു കമ്മിറ്റിയോ അല്ല, അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സംഭവം അല്ലല്ലോ ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്.
But some believers do not agree with the church stand on the issue.
കുംഭസാരം സഭയിലെ ആചാരമായിട്ട് കൊണ്ടു നടക്കുന്നതിലും എനിക്ക് അതിനോട് നല്ല അഭിപ്രായമില്ല. നമ്മുടെ തെറ്റുകൾ നമ്മുടെ ദൈവത്തോട് പറയാനാണ് ബൈബിളിൽ പറയുന്നത്.
While all eyes are on the centre, the big question is whether banning confessions in church will be an effective beginning to root out cases of sexual abuse in places of worship.
As the senior priests were also telling, these are actually beliefs that are aged back to like 2000 years old, and it's not easy to put an abolishment or even to restrict these beliefs, because these are something that's been followed by these people for ages. And that is precisely the reason why these people say if there is an issue inside a system, it is the issue that needs to be addressed, and it's not that the whole system or the whole practice needs to be abolished, is what the people here are telling. With camera person Jayakumar, Gopi Krishnan, Thiruvananthapuram for India Today.
So this is a very significant issue. This is in many ways church versus gender justice. But it is also questioning, can religious practices across religions, can they be misused against specifically women, but of course men as well? Let's debate and discuss it. I'm joined by first Madhu Kishwar as a national professor of the ICSSR. She's been very vocal with her views as well. Karuna Nandi joining us. She's an advocate, Supreme Court of India, and has in fact not only expressed her views very clearly on several social issues, but has formed an important part with regard to gender issues specifically. And John Dayal, former president, All India Catholic Union, to give us a view about the church perspective, and is it correct to hold on to and even attack the NCW chief. Let me start with John Dayal. He's joining me here in the studio. John, the words that have been used by the church here, if I can quote very directly, we suspect a hidden agenda, and we feel that this is an attack on religious freedom, which we do get under the constitution. Isn't it time at some level for the church also to probably think it over, think within, if its religious practices are being misused to blackmail and rape women, if we go by this specific complaint? Go ahead, sir.
Two small things. One, of course, is when you speak in the context of India, any religious minority will feel slightly threatened at not just one instance, but the collective, a large number of incidents between violence and a media hate campaign and political targeting. So in that context, if they say that they see a larger agenda, let us for the moment keep it aside. But internally, I can tell you, globally, in Christianity in particular, and I'm sure in all religions, there is a churning. There is a feeling that maybe are we with the time, if there have been malpractices, how to cleanse them, because religion is combating a postmodern situation where it has to be relevant. It had, and everybody should know there's a certain transparency. So coming back to specifics of
but these are serious allegations, sir.
These are very
serious. The woman must have revealed herself, confessed with a lot of trust to the priest, and then to be misused and blackmailed, considering she cannot go out. These are serious allegations. The church need to consider her as well, not just rubbish it as an isolated incident, sir.
I am totally in agreement. It should not be rubbished. We can't wish it away. It exists. It has been reported. Let us see how we handle the situation. I would like to point out, this morning I was at Mass. I begin the Mass by making a confession. I confess to Almighty Father and to you, my brothers and sisters, that have sinned through my own fault, etc., etc. It is a part of the ritual of the Mass or the prayer that I say. Catholics and about, let us say, 1.5 crore Catholics and about 25 to 50,000 Orthodox of all varieties make a confessional. Out of this 2 crores, 1 crore are men. We make this confession once a year to a priest, otherwise...
What is your point here? What are you trying to ask
the point
here?
I'm saying is, this is an aberrant, abhorrent, isolated case. There may be a few others, but this is not something that you can use to tarnish.
Do you think this is religious freedom attack that is taking place on the freedom to practice with regard to your specific faith? Do you believe that?
If you catch a criminal and punish him, it is not an attack on religious freedom. However, if you use that criminal's act to say, let us excise, let us remove confessionals from a Christian practice of prayer, then I would be extremely annoyed.
Madhukeshwar, how do you look at this view? Do you think this defense by the Catholic group specifically is a little bizarre, because the NCW says that ban these confession pleas because they can be misused? Which side are you? What is your view here?
My view is as follows. Number one, I think John has some point, and I would like to agree with that part of his statement where he says that the Catholic community and the Christian community globally is actually going through a big ferment and churning to figure out what's antiquated, what should be carried forward, etc. And that's a very healthy process which should be taken forward. To John, I would say this. John, please don't overdo this victimhood narrative, because if there's anybody who's defamed, any religious group that's defamed and attacked for so-called anti-women practices, it's the Hindu faith groups from morning till evening, and we're dealing with it. Christians far, far less. Now, I'm not in favor of a law banning confessional practices, but I am certainly urging the Christian community to review it thoroughly. You know, do an internal audit of whether this is a isolated instance or this is fairly frequent, because most of us, when we want to confess mistakes or lapses we've made, choose somebody we know, somebody we trust, an elder in the family, a close relative, or somebody who has the social skills to be an emotional mentor and an aid in difficult times. This business of having an official position given to a priest who may not even have the social skills. One second, let me finish.
Yes.
No, what I'm saying is this official position is easy to misuse. and it has been misused. And I personally know of dozens of cases of women who came to Manushi at different points in time, making very similar complaints. Now, we didn't want to create a stink about it, because they were also very diffident. They didn't know how to even express it. This is much before the Me Too campaign. I've heard countless such campaigns, complaints personally. So my plea to John is, John, please take it seriously. Do an internal study.
And John wants to respond
do an
to you,
internal
Madhu. He wants
audit.
to respond.
Find out how it's going.
If I can also
I'm not in favor of a law.
There have been priests, whether
But
it is
I am
in
in
the US,
favor
in
of the
UK,
Christian community.
even the Pope had to
actually
react to it. There have been sexual abuse cases against a lot of priests.
But that is what I'm saying.
That
is what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
That in the light of the revelations, let us say, in the US and then in Ireland, in Europe, and very few ones in India, there is a deep thinking, and Francis the Pope has taken the bull by the horns. X number of bishops have been sacked, even a cardinal has been sacked, priests have been jailed, penalties have been paid to victims. That is a churning.
You're saying banning the confession part of the practice
that is the bizarre
attacked.
aspect.
That you're saying. The NCW proposal.
Totally bizarre. It's like saying a psychiatrist should not be allowed to listen to a confession. Psychiatrists do that all the time. Psychiatrists is a science, it's an art. As Madhu has just said, people are trained in advising people. They can always misuse it. An uncle can misuse, a grandfather can misuse.
So this
anybody.
is a misuse of trust.
This is a misuse of trust, and it's not only a crime, it's a sin, and can be, should be, and will be handled.
Let's get in a legal view. I want to talk to Karuna Nandi. Karuna, you've been a vocal voice with regard to gender issues. Do you see this as church versus gender justice? Do you see this, as John Dayal says, a bizarre reference by NCW to completely ban a proposal to ban the confession plea practice? What do you say to that?
I think the NCW issue is much more easily disposed of issue, and I'm happy to see that both Madhu Kishwar and John Dayal agree on this. And surprisingly, I think I agree too that there's widespread agreement that the NCW's statement is overbroad. In my opinion, it's deeply, deeply irresponsible.
Why do you say that?
To say that the confession should be banned altogether. Let us set this aside. It's also indicative, and it's also indicative of the fact, NCW does not speak. This particular head has not spoken about Asaram Bapu and that sexual abuse, has not spoken about Gurmeet Ram Rahim and that sexual abuse where convictions have happened, and to sort of selectively in an overbroad manner target the church where you absolutely don't have the power to make these statements has unfortunately framed the debate in incorrect ways and is deeply irresponsible, takes away from the credibility of the NCW and must be set aside. Now, coming to the real problem, coming to the big problem, which is the abuse of power. And I'm glad to see that the other panelists also agree that the problem here is power. And the problem here is how
trust.
It is wielded,
Yes.
right? Now, when we look at crime, when we look at sexual abuse, then there is the remedy of the criminal law. And we must be very clear about that whether you are a priest, whether you are anyone else, the criminal law must act without fear or favor. Just as it acted in the Gurmeet Ram Rahim case, any priest must be prosecuted and put behind bars if he is found to be the perpetrator after a fair trial.
Karuna, how can women take this up legally? Women who are listening to you right now
have to be given support.
Karuna,
right?
Women who are listening to you right now and probably may be stuck in a similar situation, can they approach the court directly? Because we're talking about priests here. We're talking about people we revere, whether it is a Hindu priest or this time, of course, with regard to the church.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the thing to do, and sometimes it's a harder fight. So the first thing I would say is get enough support so that you are not alone in this fight. So that, and nowadays, and I would also urge others who are watching this show to support the women in your life to go through that process if they are talking to you, and keep an open mind. I'm not saying believe everything that everyone says to you. I am just saying that remove these barriers that cause you to disbelieve women, because historically people have constantly disbelieved women who have said that they have suffered sexual abuse. It's very important to remove these barriers. Secondly, keep in mind that when you are reporting a rape, if your complaint or molestation or even a section 5, even an outraging the modesty of a woman, you know, if the local police officer fails to report it, then that police officer himself or herself it can be liable criminally under section 166A. Now coming to the false framing of the debate by the NCW, and I think this is something we absolutely need to drop, right? But addressing the point that has been raised across news channels and many things.
John wants to say something. Yes, quickly finish your point.
Now, I don't see any evidence whatsoever that it is the nature of the confession. If I may just very quickly finish, there's no evidence to show that it is the confession itself, right, that is either causing or leading to widespread sexual abuse. There's also no evidence to show that it is more widespread due to the confession than in other sorts of relationships.
Not yet, maybe because Karuna, the cases haven't been responded. John is nodding. John is nodding to your views.
We don't ban psychologists.
Karuna, but John, I just have a question now.
I agree with both of them.
Okay, I'll come to Madhu. But John, my point is, do you think
at the same time, I disagree. I think that we need a robust mechanism to look within the Catholic Church.
John, quickly, because then I'll go to Madhu. Can the confession plea really that significant part? Is it a religious part of it? We do away with a lot of religious practices if they seem to be breaking trust, if they're anti-women.
This is not sati.
No, I didn't say sati.
No,
but
what I'm saying is, it is not, I've told you, 1 crore men confess. So, but that's not the point.
Are you saying men can be blackmailed as well?
Anybody can be blackmailed. Of course, men can be blackmailed.
No, but are you connecting it to this case?
No, I'm not connecting at all. I'm agreeing with Karuna's thing that NCW, in fact, has shifted focus from the core issue into something trivial. And that is where the Catholic Bishops' Conference, etc., are empowered to attack the NCW. The core issue is how to cleanse religion itself and the Catholic Church. And
what are you doing then to cleanse the system?
What are we doing is, see, the women theologians of the Catholic Church, for instance, and women in other denominations have come forward. Because of their activism over the last few years, codes have been set into practice. Whether they've been 100% successful, I don't know. But the process has started, empowered and engined by the women themselves and then supported by the church hierarchy.
Is there at some level, if I may be a devil's advocate here, are you at some level being defensive because you think it's about a religious minority community? Is it about a political situation? Is that how you are saying it? Because the way I see it, you're constantly saying we're trying to change the system, we're trying to work at it.
No, we are not trying to change the system. How can you change the church? What I'm saying is, if there have over the years, as in Europe and America, there was pedophilia, in India, possibly it is women, sort of priests exceeding their authority or abusing their authority. Processes are being set in motion, codes of conduct for priests.
Madhu wants to intervene.
No, one second, please, sir. And codes of ethics and processes, women can complain. There's a system.
But we're again talking about. We're talking about priests, we're talking about people who we revere similar to God. Madhu,
priests should be punished if they're found guilty.
There's no question.
Zero tolerance.
Madhu Kishwar, yes.
I have a suggestion.
Who is the body that
I have a suggestion to John. John, apart from complaints being reviewed and guilty priests being punished, I suggest the following. You know, there's an NGO which set up an anti-corruption website called I Paid a Bribe, where people actually came and gave their own accounts of why they were forced to pay bribes and what happened thereafter. Similarly, why doesn't the Catholic Church open a website, invite women? You can keep their names anonymous, but let them share experiences. Let it be known, the extent of it will come out only when there is an open, transparent process and a platform for receiving complaints on these issues. So if it happens
I'll
that
give you an
way,
answer.
then
I'll
you
give
will
you a
raise
secular-
Karuna had a similar question.
extent
Karuna, you were
of
asking a question
misuse
I will give you an
of
answer.
this institution
I will give you an
of
answer.
confessional, and then you will know whether the practice should be retained, or it's time to do away with it because it is more likely to be misused than be of any use. And what's the point of this confessional anyways? Because each one should
What
be
is the
our
point of
own
having a Ganga
conscience
Snan?
keeper.
That is not the
we
point.
shouldn't
No, no, no,
have
no.
priests
Allow me
as
to say
conscience
that.
keepers.
Disagree with
Allow
that.
me to say
I
something.
completely
Okay, Karuna
But
disagrees.
that's
Karuna,
between
why
me
do you
and Ganga.
disagree?
There's no
Don't
one
you think
intervening.
that this confession
There's
plea
no one
may
intervening.
dissuade women
Ganga
from now
Snan
next time making some serious
is not
confessions?
mediated by a priest.
No.
Karuna, let Karuna answer. Let Karuna respond, then I'll come to John there. Karuna, go ahead.
You know, the confession is something that in a society where we have major mental health problems, our rate of suicide is extremely high. Where we have our mental health professionals, our psychiatrists and psychologists per million population is one of the lowest in the world, right? And so in such a situation, I think there are many positives of the confession system where people feel, you know, religious people feel the burden of the weight of their burdens lifting, etc. Quite apart from that, constitutionally, I think there is a certain ambit if the practice itself is not affecting the public health of people, i.e. sexual assault, right?
Okay.
If it's not the practice itself, if it's not essential to the practice, if it's that we need an ambit where religion is left alone. So at the minimum, there is a floor of fundamental rights above which, according to me, this is
Well,
the way I see
definitely.
it.
Why
The
couldn't
And this is
yes,
also the way
same
Justice Nariman
standards
No,
be
Madhu,
applied
my
for
question is,
Shani
if as a
Temple?
A number
woman
of
I
judges
hear
have
of
seen
such
Why
a
could the
case,
same standard
will I
not be
be able
applied?
to go and confess to the priest,
All
specifically knowing
standards should
in
be for
villages
everyone.
in Kerala
All
or
standards
otherwise,
should be applied across the board to
priests,
every religion.
these senior level bearers there
No, but
would
please,
know me. They would
no, but
recognize
I-
the woman. They know who is confessing. They know what she is confessing. This can be misused, may have been misused.
Whose health was being affected by women of a certain age not being allowed entry into Shani Temple? One Shani Temple in the country.
Absolutely.
Whose health was being affected?
It's
That
about
such a
all
boo
religion, John
being
Dal.
made.
What do you
That's
say
why.
to a woman
Leave
watching you
it
right now
alone.
and how you're
Then leave
defending
that
the
alone
That is
confession?
also.
right.
Because the devotees,
What
devotees
assurance
don't
are you going to
want
give to
a
those
law.
women,
Right to
especially of the
non-discrimination.
Catholic
Devotees
faith,
are not
that their
pressing for
confession
law.
will not
That's
be
the right to
misused?
Non-believers who
That's not
insist
public health.
Okay.
That's a
that
separate
the
ground.
Supreme Court intervene and declare a certain practice illegal.
Not at
Why?
all.
Why are you
Not
using
at
double
all, madam.
standards? Why not the same standard
Not at all.
for Shani Temple?
Okay, let me
One
explain.
Shani Temple.
Let me explain
the
how it's not a
devotees
double
haven't
standard.
said that they
Okay,
must
I
be
see.
a
Let's stay
And
with this
there's a
issue.
lot of people
Women,
who,
I
there are a lot of
I request our women
people who
panelists
have that
to
and
kindly
let me
stay with
address
the
it.
issue. We'll come
Because
to
it's a
Shani Temple as
misconception, so we
well.
must reassure.
Yes. Closing comment I want from John Dayal.
No,
What
see-
assurance do you have for women today?
It is
it's
settled
at par.
law. It is settled law that religious laws, which in my language are called canon laws, are subservient to the law of the land. Any woman who is aggrieved has the right to go to the nearest police station and get that priest in jail. Having said that, confessionals are a healing process.
Yes.
They are not integral to faith as much as any other religious practice is not integral to the relationship between you and God. But they are an integral part of the practice of faith, of the rituals which make you part of the community. They are meant.
And the priests
they are
who
meant-
misuse must be given the
must be
harshest
punished.
punishment.
Absolutely. Zero tolerance. On that, there is no question.
Okay.
Nobody has defended that.
I want to end on that note, because for all women who are listening and watching this debate, if confession plea is such an important part of the religious practice, it must continue. But I have always believed that religion should empower women, should empower men, and should
Absolutely.
not be misused. John Dayal says harshest punishment should be given to people who misuse this trust. Thank you so much for watching. Madhu Kishwar, Karuna Nandi and John Dayal for your views. Let's just hope that women who are watching this debate will be able to come forth if they have any similar complaints. Thank you for watching. Do give us your feedback as well.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.